All right. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. How you all doing? Welcome, welcome. Happy weekend. Hope you're having a good
Um,
one. So thank you for joining today's webinar. We're excited to have you here. We have a lot in store for you. So we're just going to keep it moving along. So today we're going to be looking at the graphic designer's guide to product design and exactly what product designers need to do to learn. Graphic designers need to do to learn and land product design jobs. So yeah, welcome. So some housekeeping before we continue. So this session is meant to be interactive. So we're here to talk to each other and learn from each other. So you can use the chat or come off mute if you want to ask questions. Feel free to ask questions in the chat. We'll have a Q&A at the end, and we'll be recording this. So recordings will be available after the session. And take notes, whatever resonates with you, whatever questions you have, please take note of them. At the end of it, we're going to be having a practical session. So do stay for that. And hope you have your Figma opened up and you're good to go. So we'll just do a quick poll, and you could just go to the chat and let us know so that we can know you. Tell us what your name is and what type of graphic design you currently do. So is that graphics, branding, so what kind of design you do, graphics, branding, print, and so on, or web or whatever. And secondly, you tell us how long you've been designing. And lastly, what made you curious about product design? So just tell us your name, the kind of design you do, how long you've been doing it, and what made you curious about product design. So you could just drop it in the chat while we move on. So our agenda, so this is our agenda for today. And we'll just quickly go into introducing ourselves, so a bit about us. So hi, my name is Oyi, and I started my career as a graphic designer. And from there, I transitioned. I became a developer, particularly focused on front end web development. Then I became a product designer. Currently, I lead product design at the Honeycomb Works, and I also run Soteria Digital, which is a web development and design agency. And a fun fact is that Seun was my product design tutor, so I'm super excited to have him here. And yes, I'll just hand over to Seun.
Thanks, Amola. Thanks for the introduction. I'm Shell. My background is in URP, urban regional planning. Focus was on urban design. So I've always been a designer almost all my life, actually. I also started my career as a graphic designer, same as when then I transitioned into brand design, watching videos like Chris Do and whatnot, right? If you guys know that guy, you should know that guy. Then I transitioned into product design. I did product design for a while. So as a designer, I think I have about 7+ years experience, maybe 8. And I'm currently a senior product manager at one of the leading commercial banks in Nigeria. So why all this gist? I'm saying that as a designer or as a graphic or someone who is, I'm still a graphic designer actually. I still do some designs here and there, who is a graphic designer. I've transitioned to product designer, and I think sharing my perspective on this call might help you or should help you, transition properly. Because one thing I've learned is if you don't, you might get frustrated. And so hopefully by the end of the session, you would have enough insight into how to do that. So yeah, we're going to look at product design. We're going to look at a number of things actually to prepare your mind. We're going to look at product design. We're going to look at what product design is. The distinction between product design and graphic design, a bit of the similarities as well. Excuse me, because they do have similarities. I should show my face so you can see my face briefly. All right, so we're going to look at a bit of the similarities as well. What else? Then we look at transferable skills that you pick from, graphic design into product design. And at the end of the day, we'd also look at the opportunities that are out there in product design. Yeah, and there goes. So I'm going to turn off my video now. Especially for those who probably have low internet bandwidth. So I'll just turn it off to help us have a good session. All right. So product design, what is it? Prepare your mind. We're going to look at product design. We're going to look at what product design is. So one thing I've heard in the past, really, people think product design is like an advanced graphic design. or as a graphic designer, the next level, it's like a grade, like the next level is product design, but that's not true. They're actually two very separate practices. Although they do have some similarities, but I mean, you can be a senior graphic designer and be a senior product designer. It doesn't make you any less. You can also be a graphic designer and be a product designer. It doesn't make you any less or any more than the other person, right? So there are just fields of interest, field of practice where they have their different applications. So what is product design? Um, so it's the process of creating digital products that solve problems for people. A particular community, or should I say place or website that I like a lot is Interaction Design Foundation, IDF. You guys can go check them out at your free time. You get a lot of resources on there and all. But yeah, going forward, so it's not just making things look pretty. It's not just about problem. It's not just about I lay out, I put colors in here, I put typography in here. Even though I like to tell people that graphic design is also, yes, there's some level of thinking in graphic design. You have to be able to communicate well. You have to be able to pass the message across to the audience the right way you want them to. But product design is not exactly, it doesn't end at just, oh, sure, I like the color, it's popping or it's fine, right? Product design is a lot about problem solving, right? And to solve a problem, you need to understand that problem. Now, to understand that problem, you need to understand the people that are using that problem before you then create the solution. So one thing you find a lot in product design is there's always a lot of emphasis on actually validating the problem, right? A few things you will learn when you join the bootcamp will be things like the product design life cycle, or I've forgotten the word for it, but anyways, it's basically the process where you go from problem definition, validation, and iteration and whatnot to tests. And then so one thing we also believe in product design is there's a lot of iteration, there's a lot of hypotheses, right? So hypothesis, you have assumptions, you think that this is the best way for the user to use it, but we also do a lot of measuring, right? So we want to be sure that whatever solution that we're solving actually whatever problem we're solving rather actually solves that problem. So one thing I've heard in the past, really, people think product design is like an advanced graphic design, or as a graphic designer, the next level, it's like a grade, like the next level is product design, but that's not true. Yeah, so product design, graphic design, what's the difference? First off, for graphic design, most of what you do is static, right? So you have a flyer, you have a logo, you have stationaries, it's static, right? I mean, users can't interact with it. The moment people start to interact with your designs, then it's product design. It's an interactive design. You've moved from graphic design into product design, right? That is when you now need to start considering things like edge cases, or how are they going to, how will they know this is where they are supposed to click, right? Another thing with graphic design is there's a lot of emphasis on client vision. Um, so this most of you, I believe, are graphic designers. So you hear things like, oh, this is how I want it to be. This is the color I'm seeing. Some people even tell you this is how they saw it in their dream, right? I'm not saying that to make light of whatever it is. So I'm just saying, mostly, a lot of the graphic design outcome is driven by, or the output is driven by the vision of the clients, like this is what they want. And most times actually you would realize that you create something that you would even think that might not meet or might not be nice enough, but once the client says they're fine, that's it with graphic design. Now, but with product design, even when the clients insist on some things, the users will give him feedback, and they'll give him feedback in several ways. Either they are not using the application, they are using it, their bugs or their customer complaints. You would always know whether or not you're solving problem in product design. And so there's a lot of focus on the user needs, right? So what are we trying to solve here? Why are we solving it this way? How do we do it? How do we go about it, right? Now, graphic design as well, there's just one final version. The way we save now, graphic designers, logo design, final, logo design, final, logo design, final in Jesus' name. But I'm just saying that once you submit that last version anyway, that version is basically done, right? There is no iterative process. There's nothing to say, oh, we measured there's nothing. There's no, yeah, we do A/B testing and whatnot, but it's not as deep and as in-depth as product design. It's continuous. So I do a landing page today. I design a landing page today, and then feedback tells me that by the time I plug in product analytics tools, I start to realize that, oh, people are actually missing where the sign up button is, or people don't know that we have offers for them. Why are people picking this over this? So with product design, there are lots of questions to ask. You are really, really observing and, looking at many factors. And there's a lot of psychology to it. There's a lot of, and that's one thing I think Oyin is very good with, psychology of design. Um, I don't know if she missed that part when you actually studied, she did her master's in HCI, human computer interaction. I'm sure she's smiling somewhere like, why this guy bring this up? But it's something that I've wanted to always do personally myself. So, but yeah, why I brought that up is because, a big part of design is psychology, especially product design. There's the psychology of that. There's the even the human anatomy, for example. There's something called X law, if I remember correctly, that X or fits, I can't remember which one, that basically tells you or guides you on how you place a button on the screen. For example, you notice that the buttons that are important are the ones you can reach the easily, right? And the ones that are probably far from your reach are not buttons you always use. If you look at your app, for example, where your transfer button is, your banking app, where your transfer button is in a place where you can reach easily. If it's not, it's a friction because that's something you always need. But if you notice your profile button is somewhere up there at the top right, if you look at that law I'm talking about, you notice why it's there. It's not something you always use. Okay, enough of that. Focus in graphic design is visual communication, whereas product design is problem solving and visual design. I think I already touched on this. In graphic design as well, you can be a solo team or a small creative team. But in product design, there is always a cross-functional relationship, right? You're talking to the PMs, which is where I am now. You're talking to engineers, you're talking to researchers, you're talking to even the stakeholders, the business owners themselves. You're talking even sometimes to the users. Most times, actually, you're talking to the users. I mean, I can remember about last week or last 2 weeks, there was a challenge with how some customers were using our application, and we have to get on the call. We actually were about to schedule a call and say, hey, you know what? Let's understand how you're using this application, right? But luckily, they figured out their way around it and then realized that it was just a knowledge gap. And so the question the product designer will be asking next is, oh, how do I solve this knowledge gap? Right. So it's a very iterative process, really. All right. So, if you have interest in product design or you've tried your hands on product design, as a graphic designer, this is what you hear a lot. You hear product design, UI, UX design, UX design, UI design, and then you start to ask yourself, okay, what are these things? Are they the same thing? Sort of, but not really. Right. They have very close relationship, and that's why sometimes it's very difficult to know how to differentiate them. But yeah, with product design, it's like an all-encompassing thing, right? It's the big picture kind of thing. It factors in the business goals, the user needs, the design execution. Some product designers are actually have gone ahead to be what we call design managers. The reason is because they are now at the point where they can make decisions, and that's one of the superpowers you would have as a product designer. You make decisions that can affect the business outcomes, right? So, but with UX design, right? UX design is very focused on things like interaction, flow, structure, the how, right? And then UI design is on, the looks, the visual design system, iconography, prototyping and whatnot, right? When I used to teach product design, I break it down into the why, what, and how, right? Sometimes I feel like the product designer would ask the why, the UX designer will ask the how, and the UI designer will do the what. Not exactly, don't take my word for it, I'm just saying, right? So, but you need all of these things to actually achieve a good product. For example, someone comes to you, they say, oh, I want to build a banking application. You won't just say, okay, let's open the Figma app. You would ask, why do you want to build a banking application? That why would help you see the problem. And then you would ask what are the requirements for me to build the banking application? What are the assets, the visual, the iconography, whatnot? And then I then get to the how do I present to the user? How does the user move through the application to achieve their goal? So if you get that a bit, you will understand what I'm saying. Please, if you have questions, please drop them in the chat box. I'm sure that someone is observing or at least paying attention to that part. So please, any question at all, just drop it there and we'll attend to them either as we go or at the end of this session. So transferable skills that you have as a graphic designer that would really, really help you to become like a really good product designer. Let me put this disclaimer. Being a graphic designer does not automatically make you a product designer or does not automatically qualify you as a product designer. I mean, I put the post on LinkedIn for this session, and I was saying that I've asked students who I have taught, who were very good graphic designers, but turned out to not be so great product designers. And it's not because they couldn't be, it's because they didn't pay attention to the core principles, the guiding principles of product design. If you think that product design starts and ends with just design or visuals alone, then you're wrong. Like you're really, really wrong. And that is why we're looking at the skills that you can transfer, but we'd also look at the skills that you need to add on top of it. Right. Now, what are the skills you already have? You have very good visual design fundamentals. You understand the principles of design. You understand hierarchy. You understand repetition. You understand form. You understand grid system. You understand composition. You understand things like that that makes communication great or makes a design or a flyer design really good. You also understand typography, which is really, really important when you get to product design. You understand color theory, contrast, accessibility. You know that if I use a variety of white text on a very bright yellow or light yellow background, I mean, people will not be able to read it. So you are somewhere about 20-30% in being a good product designer, right? You have a eye for good design, right? Pardon me, I'm going to use this word, is Yoruba. We call it foju. So sometimes I have done it in the past when I don't have time and I need to like really, really churn out something. I use the Fuju method as a product designer. I just look and like, this thing should balance. You know, it's not good. I don't advise that you do it, but I do it sometimes, right? Because I don't have time. And because of that, I've trained my eye to really, really understand that I can, about at least 60-70% of the time, I'm right. That is actually balanced. And then the rest is, when I cook beans. Right. So, and then you have creative problem solving skills. Now, you are able to translate brief into an output, right? You give me a brief, as graphic designers, I usually just bring the brief for either our creative director will break it down for us, or we ourselves will break it down and then translate that. So you are creative. You know how to churn out something, and that's it's not a small deal. Actually, it's a big deal. And then you understand brand and systems thinking. For example, I can give you a brand guide, and you can use that brand guide to create something, and it will align with the brand guide. You know the colors to use, the type to use, how to use it, how to place the logo. So, and these are very good transferable skills you would actually take into product design, because in product design we have things called brand guide, and we have things called design system, right? And design system basically is what ensures consistency across all the app. If you don't have that, then I mean, you're just designing things that your user will wonder if they are in different companies, right? So you shouldn't move from one screen to another and feel like it's disjointed. They should really feel like the same flow. Just like this slide feels like it's one thing, it's one entity. Yeah, so we'll talk about the skills you need to learn. So, we've touched on skills that are transferable. Now, let's talk about the skills you really need to learn as a product designer, which is one of the things I believe Soteria Tech Bootcamp will teach you. Now, first on the list is empathy and research. So when he's not paying me to say this, but I'll say it. She was one of the best design students I had. And I say it because I say that because I like to think that design is not just visual. It's about how well you understand the problem and you're able to interpret that problem and make it a usable, turn it into like give a usable solution to that problem. And that was one thing I think she really did well. I mean, so if you are ever considering how to understand, empathy and research, then definitely I think she's a research guru actually. So technical context and collaboration. Oh, sorry, let me touch on a bit on what empathy is. Empathy is sort of like I feel you, for lack of words, like I feel you, I kind of understand you, right? To be able to empathize with someone, you need to understand or get an idea of what their context is. So sometimes you would go to the field, and this is what makes design really interesting. I chose design because I believe design is something that keeps you on your toes almost forever. Like you would always learn. And the reason you always learn is because human beings change. Like tastes evolve, cultures evolve, different things influence their choices, and you need to keep studying them to understand how best to serve them. Right? The design that you created, I don't know anybody that would like to. I had a beep. I want to be sure that's a question or something, but I'll just continue. Um, Yeah, so I was saying about empathy. So I just need to basically get in your shoes to understand that better. So technical context and collaboration are they are another set of skills you learn. You would need to deeply understand flows and architecture. Um, yeah, these things sound really big, but I'm sure by the time you take this training, you would get a good grasp of them. You need to be able to think in systems. You need to be able, I think about flows already. You need to understand how things connect. For example, there was a time I was, leading a team that built an HR application. So he had payroll, he had accounting, he had what we call people directory, he had assets, right? You can change something in okay, you have time and attendance as well. You can change something in people directly that can affect time and attendance or affect payroll. So you need to be a system. You need to be someone that thinks in systems, not just, oh, I'm changing this thing here. That's it. If you're not careful, you've broken something somewhere. And these are some of the things you definitely learn as you practice more and as you take this training, hopefully. Product analytics is something I also think is really key. There are tools that do this, but you also need to have an analytical mindset. This is not the same thing as data analytics. Don't get me wrong. A big part of product analytics is knowing how to ask the right questions, right? So why is it this way? Why are we seeing this upward trend? Why are we seeing this downward trend? Why is there a flat line here? So you ask a lot of why, and you cannot be isolated. You can't be solo. You would be a good product designer if you know how to collaborate. And I've personally reviewed the curriculum for Sotera, and I see a big part is around collaboration, and you need that. You need to practice that a lot. Prototyping and interaction design is another skill we need to learn. Um, this one is straightforward. There's nothing else to say about it. Prototyping basically is the ability for you to present the application in a mock-up way. So it is the equivalent of a mock-up in graphic design. But this time around, you can interact with it, but it's just that it's not developed yet, right? So there's no data at the back end storing, there's no information being collected. It's a dummy, but it's the closest to what the actual thing will look like when you're done. There are many tools that can do this now. With the evolution of AI and whatnot, one of the things that I've also seen in the curriculum is the emphasis on AI and how you can use AI tools to actually enable quick prototyping. So I believe I'm running out of time, so I'll try to be fast. So what are the big shifts? Mindset is a very important thing on how you mindset is a very important factor that guides your success as a product designer. So we need to understand what you need to prepare for mentally to be a successful product designer. Remember, I said that it's not just enough that you're a good graphic designer. You might get to product design and be disappointed because you think that it's supposed to just be like product design, but that's the case. There's a lot of thinking that needs to happen. So mindset shift one: client vision over user needs. Now, or client vision into user needs. This one, your focus is now not just on this man needs to like my design, or this woman needs to like my design, or these people need to like my design. It needs to now move to, yes, they might need to like my design, but I need to be solving problems for the user. In fact, in product design, people can like your design and you're not solving a problem. At the end of the day, those people that like your design will not remember that they like the design. They will only remember that you've designed a product that people are not using, or people find a lot of friction in. For example, if I design a food application and people are finding like it looks really fine, beautiful, but people are finding it hard to even know where to order the food from on the application, then I've designed things, right? And so it's important to really, really understand user needs, right? So, I mean, like what we have here, we can make it premium and whatnot, but you need to really, really know what they need to accomplish their goal, right? So you're not just a client pleaser now, you're a user pleaser. Now, but in product design, you also need to really, really know how to manage stakeholders and the expectation. Now, what's the second one? The focus will shift from static deliverables to dynamic and interactive systems. Beyond just, oh, I've done a logo, I've done a brochure, I've done a business profile, I've done ID card, I've done that. Now, you are designing in screens and flows and interactions. In fact, what I like to say is the biggest part of design is not in Figma. The biggest part of design is in your mind, is in your ability to be able to interpret the problem and create a solution out of it. Is in your ability to be able to really, really, in fact, a big part of design, I would say about 60% of design, right, is largely your ability to understand the problem and create a flow that actually works. Right. By the time you get to your Figma, you're flowing. Like you are really flowing because at that point in time, you've already charted a course or a journey that the user can take to achieve that goal. Um, so yeah, like I said, I touched on this a bit that solo creation, you would have to, evolve from being a solo creator into a cross-functional collaborator. Sorry, that's a bit of a tongue twister. Right. And so what does this mean? I think I touched on it earlier that you work with PMs, you work with engineers. As product designer, you would really, really need to learn how to work with engineers. People tend to ask this question a lot. So how do I design the screen in a way that engineers can design it well? Or engineers don't really design what I've done. Sometimes it's not just a fault of the engineer. Sometimes it's you. It's how well have you designed it sometimes. And so one of the things I learned really early is how well to work with engineers and understand how to deliver. So this will make you a really good product designer. And the last shift will be visual appeal to product analytics. I touched on this, so I won't dwell too much on it. Beyond just it looks fine, you'd have to really, really measure. Um, and iterate when necessary. You can redesign a screen for 10 times. And then but again, you shouldn't just be designing screens because you can design screens. They should really be intentional. And they should be they should be informed decisions, right? If you're lucky and you have a product analyst on your team, they can help you, extract that data. And if you don't, there are tools that can help you understand. There's Google Analytics, there's Mixpanel, I think there's Oja as well, that can really help you understand, how these things work. Um, Now let's look at the money matter. I think I am making a good run with my time. So the money matter. What are salary options? So as a graphic designer today, entry level, you're probably making around 100 to 150. I can say this confidently because I've led a team before. And I mean, things might have changed now with that team, but these are some of the salary ranges you see out there. Mid-level, 200 to 300K, senior level, 350 upwards. Some people actually earn as much as 800, 1.5. Again, your seniority level will determine that. Sometimes you'd have to have a mix of skill sets to be able to earn more than that. As an international graphic designer, you would earn probably 20 to 40K, mid-level 40 60K, senior 70 to 100. Now let's move to product design. Entry level, you earn about 200 to 400. Personally, I have a few job links I've shared people that carry this. Mid-level, 500 to 1 million, and then senior about 1.5 million above. I know people that I've heard of people that probably earn about, yeah, close to about 2 million thereabout. And then, of course, some in USD, which is the international one, 50K to 70, 80K to 120, senior 120K to 200. Now, there are also other seniority levels. You would start to ask or wonder, why is it that some product designers are earning more than graphic designers? Well, it's simple. One is demand. Two is the technical expertise required. So demand in the sense that there's a lot of emphasis on technology and how we can use technology to drive innovative or solve problems innovatively. And so a product designer is very pivotal to how well you actually solve a problem. In fact, I can remember having a conversation with a friend, and he was telling me that Y Combinator, I don't know if you know Y Combinator, but they're like one of the biggest startup investors. They always prefer or they like when they see design founders. Like they believe design founders actually really do well. And an example is in Airbnb. Airbnb was actually a design founder kind of thing, right? So you would see it in the experience. You see how well the experience is done. And the designer is not just, once you can solve a pain point well, you can deliver a good product and you can make a good business. Sometimes you would see lots of designers actually veering into business too. Why? Because they understand the business perspective, they understand the user perspective as well. And so there's a lot of requirements for you to be a product designer, and hence the disparity in the pay structure, right? So I'm saying this to just help us understand that it's not because product design is superior to graphic design, but it's just because there's more demand one, and there are more things you need to learn to be actually to be a good product designer and to do good product designs. All right, so I think this is where my I think I did well with my time. I think when you gave me 45 minutes, this is 42. So yeah,
Yeah, you did great.
this
Thank
is where I
you.
stop. Yeah, so Wayne, thanks.
Thank you so
I'll
much.
stop sharing now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. Can you all hear me? Okay. So
Yes.
yes, please add your questions. I'm sure there's been a lot that you've gotten so far. Please add your questions in the chat, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. So, like Seun said, there's a lot of demand for product designers, and he really emphasized a lot around like how that shift you have to make that shift as a graphic designer from thinking just about how things look and start thinking about how things work. So one of the questions that came in while we were gathering the signups was in terms of like how do I actually do this thing? How do I actually become a product designer? So I'm just going to be showing you what that looks like. All right. So the first thing that we want to look at is like the roadmap. So let's say you've heard everything that Sean has talked about. And you're like, okay, I'm ready. I want to do this. What do I need to learn? So it's like the road. So phase one is that you need to learn that discovery and research, right? You talked a lot about that, so I won't dwell too much on this. Phase two, you want to learn how to design and build. Then phase is you want to learn how to validate your solutions. Now, these things work, it's not a linear thing, right? You do all of this, they are all intertwined, but it's a process, and you have to learn how it works, and that's what this looks like. So that's what you need to learn. So secondly is you need to consider the fact that despite the fact that this roadmap looks like this, and I put the weeks in there, I try to break that down, what that would look like. But the truth is that how long it would take you really depends on you. I know people that have been learning product design for years now. I ask them every time I ask them, they're like, they're taking courses, they are doing this, and it's in probably like 2 years, 3 years, they are still on it, right? So that journey can take you 3 months, it can take you 6 months, it can take you 3 years. It depends on how you're willing to commit to it. And so you have to really ask yourself, what am I trying to accomplish here? What's my goal? Some of you here are students. This is the perfect time for you to start learning so that when you are ready to graduate, or even now as a student, you can actually start doing things. So really, are you ready to bet on yourself? All right. So let's just quickly jump into the practical side of things. But I can see some questions coming in. As a product designer, okay, I wonder what that would look like. But the truth is that how long it would take you really depends on you. I know people that have been learning. I want to answer this. Let me just go through what we have for today, and then we'll come to the questions. All right. So practical exercise, right? We've talked about as a graphic designer, you are thinking about the look of things, how things look. You're solving problems as a graphic designer, but as a product designer is on a different level, right? You're thinking about how people are experiencing your product. So we are going to do a quick exercise. So let me ask a quick question before I do this exercise. I want you to leave in the chat and write one app that you use almost on a daily basis and one thing that frustrates you about that app. So just think about that for a moment. What is that thing, right? Some of us, it could just be that, you go on Instagram and then all of a sudden you can't find how to create a video. You can't find the button again. Whatever it is, just put it in the chat. What's an app that you use, and one example of something that frustrates you about that app. Please let's write something in the chat so that I'll know that we're actually following. Okay, I think somebody put something, Chat GPT. I can't find my previous chats easily when I need them. Yes. ChatGPT can be very annoying. There was a time I was like, oh, I wish there was a way I could just like, ChatGPT goes on this long ramble when he's saying something. And I'm like, in between, I want to actually like query this thing and be like, let's talk about this. But yeah, let me not go into that. Okay, so an example of a design exercise that we're going to be looking at today is that a user is trying to make a bank transfer. So we all use bank apps, yes. OPay, Kuda, FCMB, Sterling, Stanbic, whatever. So you put yourself in the position of a user trying to make a transfer, but in the process picks the wrong bank. Okay, so there's a process that has to go through where it validates the account number to bring out the name of the person. So you've done this, but you selected the wrong bank. The app tells you that something is wrong, but it doesn't help you fix it. Okay, so this is an example of a typical thing that would happen. Of course, it's not this, but as a product designer, you'll be facing different kinds of problems. So as the product designer on the team, how do you help them solve this problem? So let's walk through this and what that would look like. Okay, please, can you copy that link in the slide and put it in the chat? That's the link to the Figma file so that everyone can go to it. So this is the design file we are going to be using. We've created some pre-designed screens so that you can go in there and play and play around with it. So it's you just have to, click on it, you open the file, and then you can use it into that. Okay, so an example of a design exercise that we're going to be looking at today is that a user is trying to make a bank transfer. So here's the process that it looks like. Okay, so you'd have to go through the problem. Seun talked about, that design thinking process, right? And how everything is iterative. That process is iterative. You come back to it, you test, you come back, you iterate, you change things. All right. So number one is that you want to have, define, state the problem very clearly. Number two, you want to define the needs of the users. Number three is ideation. So ideate simply means coming up with ideas for solving that problem. Number three is designing the solution. And the last one is test and validation. All right, so let's go through this, our example. So our example, what is the problem? But before we go on, I just want to ask if anybody has ever encountered this kind of problem before. Have you encountered? I know personally I have encountered it, and then I'm trying to pay somebody and they're like, oh, what's the name? What's the name? And I check and it's like, oh, there's an error. We can't confirm the name. So has anyone ever faced this challenge before? Drop it in the chat. All right. So what is the problem? The problem here is that the user gets stuck at an error with no way forward. Okay, put yourself in the position of that person. You are in a hurry and you're trying to make that transaction at a supermarket, and then that thing is happening. So, and then it just tells you, validation error. What does that mean? What do I face this challenge before drop it, do with this? Next step as a designer is that you want to define what does the user need. Okay, you know what the problem is, but what does the user need? In this situation, the user do with this. They need a way to correct their mistake and complete the transfer. Okay, so they want to be able to correct, like if there's an error there, maybe the name of the bank does not match the account number, or the account number is correct and the bank is correct, but the account number is wrong. So you want to be able to identify which one is it, what's the error, and then you want to do that without having to leave the app, right? Say, okay, let me quickly, maybe the person sent you something on WhatsApp, and so call the person on WhatsApp or something. So how do you do that? So that's where they need a way to correct their mistake and complete the transfer. Where ideation comes in. One of the questions that came into the form is like, how do we come up with ideas? There are different frameworks for coming up with ideas. In fact, you can see down here, if you wanted to come up with a design problem, some of us have been doing design for a while, like product design, and you're trying to come up with like solutions to put in your case study, or design problems that you can solve and then you can put in your portfolio. I can teach you the framework for actually putting in like how to come up with those ideas, and then and the ideas will be something that actually solve problems. But let's just look at this. So how might we help this particular user? And when you're at this process, you always want to put yourself in the position of this person, right? Think about it as, this is me, that this thing is happening to me. What would I want to happen? So here are a few suggestions, but let me go back and I'll just pause here, and I want you to drop it in the chat. I can see the chat is going on well. GT Bank, yes, GT Bank is very, very GT Bank is very, very annoying. So please, that's the link. Thank you, Seun. That's the link to the Figma file. How many of us have been able to access the Figma file? Where ideation comes in. One of the questions that came into the form is like, how do we come up with ideas? There are different frameworks. While you do that, we are asking ourselves, how do we solve this problem? How do we solve this problem? Yes, someone should leave something in the chat. I want to hear you. I want to hear you. Just leave something and say, okay, this is the problem. How would I solve this problem? What are the things you may do? Okay, I'll zoom your slide.
Is it for the bank app?
Yes, the bank app, the transfer error. So how do you solve that problem where it's not validating your name?
I think I would give a hint. The way when you're putting in a password, when you're trying to log into when you're trying to open your laptop, it gives you a hint. So I think maybe you can give a hint that the account number is not correct or the bank is not correct, so that you can just check it instead of
Okay.
looking.
So that's an example. So you can keep thinking about it, and I'm going to give you an exercise. And some of us are on the community group, so you can submit that assignment afterwards. So here are a few things that you can do. Number one is that you can give them a suggestion to contact the payee. All right. You can, for testing, not texting, you can use it to test an app, Figma app. All right. So we can put it there to tell them to contact the payee to confirm the details. Number two is you can suggest the correct bank for them. So maybe they put in the account number and then you can validate from the back end, like, okay, this actually belongs to this bank. Of course, there are going to be issues with that, but let's not talk about that. Number three is let them retry with a different bank. So you can ask them to, okay, go back to the drop down list and choose a different bank. And another one could be you can show them the recent banks they've used and see if is one of those. All right, so let's go into Figma. Let's design. Let me show you what that design process looks like. All right. So hopefully you've all opened your Figma. If you cannot, don't worry. I'll just walk you through the design. All right. So the good thing about Figma is that Figma, if you're familiar with design tools, like Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop, Canva, and all of that, you can use Figma. It basically uses the basic tools, although there are advanced features there, but the basic things, picking things, dropping things, changing colors, all those things, they are all there. So now, first thing you'll notice is that this design is very bland. It's just black and white, and it's very intentional. Why I did that is that one of the things that I have seen that comes up as a question from graphic designers a lot, or from people who are learning how to design, is that they get stuck on trying to make things look pretty, right? So maybe you have a dribble page, and the only thing that is in that your dribble page is a splash screen. You just have the splash screen, you have a logo, and you put a button because you spent a lot of time, and then from there, you're like, okay, what's the next step? Or maybe you created a website and then you just design only the hero page section. You don't know how to actually go beyond that point. And that's what we're actually going to be covering in the bootcamp, is how do you actually design flows? Seun talked about it. It's not about designing static things. Product design is about designing a flow, right? An experience, an interaction. When they click on this, what happens? When they click on this, what comes up on the screen? Okay. So in this case, this is an example. So when you are starting a design, start with black and white. Before you start coloring, before you start adding shadow, before you start adding effect, just start with black and white to start thinking about what are the essential things that the user needs to have. Okay, so in this case, first thing, select, the account that they are starting from. Then you click on that. I'll just quickly show you the prototype. So this is the prototype. Okay, so you click on this and then it takes you to the account number. You choose your account number, you choose your beneficiary account. So maybe Sterling Bank, Stanbic IBTC, GT Bank. So in this case, let's assume you choose the bank you're supposed to go to was Sterling, but you choose Stanbic. Okay, after you choose Stanbic, then it will say, this doesn't look like a Stanbic IBTC bank account. Please call your payee to confirm their details. All right. Another option would be, so in the case where they actually select the right bank, let's say Sterling Bank, which is the right one, it would do the confirmation screen, and then you can confirm if it's the beneficiary. Just a simple flow. You make the transfer, and then after that, you are done with the payment process. Now I'm going to walk you through that spinner. We're going to do a quick example of how to do that. But that's just a quick walkthrough of an example of what happens. Now, in the case where we are trying to solve this problem differently, here is a suggested solution you can do. So you are thinking about, at this point, okay, this person cannot, maybe I can't confirm. What if we give the user a link to the bank and say, okay, did you mean Sterling Bank? So they can click on it, and after they click on it, then they can go back to this. We call it the happy path, right, in product design. So the happy path is basically the ideal user journey, right? Most of the times, users will not follow the ideal path. That's what you need to realize, is that oftentimes whatever can be broken will be broken. Whatever, like that, sometimes they'll use a product. Sometimes people use some things and they ask, users come up with some app, they come up and like, oh, how do I do this thing? I'm like, how did you even get to that point? I did, like, how did you think about that, right? So people always do things that you don't expect them to do, and that is normal as human beings. And as a product designer, that is what you are designing for, right? All those different cases where things don't go exactly as planned. All right. I'll just pause here and say, before we go to the spinner and go to how to actually do the prototype, I want you to do a critical open your Figma. If you cannot, don't worry. I'll just walk you through the design. All right. So the good thing about Figma is that Figma, if you're familiar with design tools, like Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop, Canva, and all of that, you can use Figma. Is basically uses the basic tools, although there are advanced features there, but the basic things, picking things, dropping things, changing tick of the solution that we came up with. So all the solutions, how to, adding the suggested bank, telling them to contact their payee, all those things. Write down, critique that solution, and come up with other ideas for this problem. Okay, so go home, think about it, and drop your solutions. It can just be a simple text, a bullet point, put it in the WhatsApp group. So if you're in a WhatsApp community channel, you can post it to the channel called Product Design. Okay, just go to the channel called Product Design. It has a purple icon. So just put it there, and then we would give you feedback on the solutions you came up with. Okay, so let's talk about the product design bootcamp. So Seun has talked about it. So all of what we are looking at here is really going to be covered in depth in the product design bootcamp. We're going to really think about what are the flows, what are things that the things that you need to consider. How do you actually empathize with users? How do you come up with solutions, right? Really good solutions. How do you test those solutions? And how do you come up with different case studies? We're going to work together as a team, right? Because it's going to be a team thing. So you're going to work on real projects, right? You're going to be working with other designers, because that collaboration is very, very important for you as a designer. So we're going to be working on real projects. You'll be learning from mentors, someone like Seun and many other people who do this on a day-to-day basis and can give you exact insights into what is obtainable, not just theory, but actual practical. And will not, tell you lies, but actually tell you what is obtainable. You follow the roadmap, which has been validated. So a lot of it came from, my HCI, some of the work I did in my HCI degree, and then practical work, research, and all of that. So it's a validated curriculum. You get one-to-one feedback, you get mentorship, and then AI, how to use AI to speed up your workflow will be integrated into every step. How to use AI to do research, how to, use AI to come up with ideas, to prototype, to test every single step of the way. You'll be a part of a community of people that are learning, get feedback on your work. You can also, interact with other people like yourself who are on this journey. And then at the end of it, what you will get is that you will have a portfolio with at least, 1 to 2 case studies that you can then use to apply for your first job. Okay. So it starts February 14th and it runs for 12 weeks. And the commitments that you'll be your investment and commitment is 50,000 naira. Which honestly is super, super, super discounted. I can't even tell you how discount this price, this 50,000 naira is really just, like I said, is for your investment and commitment. Is not the exact value of the cost. The cost is much more valuable than that. So take advantage of this. The next cohort is not going to be 50,000 naira, I bet you. This first cohort that we are doing is 50,000. Anytime if you come after this cohort, the price has increased. Okay, so you want to take advantage of this opportunity and sign up as soon as possible if you want to really put all your heart into it. Like, this is 2026, so that at the end of the year you can say, I have invested in something. Here's where I am. Here was my goal, and I was able to accomplish it. This is a very good time for you to get started. So you can send us a DM. You have most of your investment and commitment is 50,000 naira. Which honestly is super, super, super group. But the major place to go is to go to bootcamp.soteriadigital.co, or please put it in the chat. So that's where you go to sign up, or you can send us a DM. If you're having any inquiry, if you have any questions you want to ask, if you're having any challenge at all about it, just send us a DM and we'll be happy to respond. So let's go back to the example that we're going to look at. We already passed time with subgroup, but the major place to go is to go to Boost. We started a bit late because people came late. But if you want to go, you're free to go. But we will share the recording afterwards. So we want to do that. That spinner thing that I showed you. I want to just quickly show you how to do something like that. Just a quick practical. So first thing you want to do is to, bring up your frame. I'll just put the frame here. Let's use Android. And so let me just delete this so I can show you what I did. So first thing is you draw a circle. So basically we want this spinner to, go round and round and round. And to do that, we need two elements inside this circle. So you want to close it a bit, and then do that, and then close it up, okay? So that you can create a smaller circle. So I'll just duplicate this, Ctrl C, Ctrl V, and then open a smaller semicircle. All right. So just do that and then add a corner radius. I'll do that, 50. Let's use a purple or let's use a green. Yeah, so that, break this down. This one, you change the transparency to, let's say, to 30%, so that you can see the green circle going round and round. Then you want to align this to the center, align to the middle. And then what we want to do is I want to create different states for that particular. So we'll group it. And then if you're using your Windows or whatever, you right click on it and then you see frame selection. So you create a frame, okay? And then we'll just name this spinner 1. All right. Then after you're done with that, you want to duplicate it 4 times or 5 times or 6 times. But I think 4 is okay. So you just duplicate this, spinner 1, spinner 3, spinner 4. Now what I'm trying to do will make sense to you in a moment. Okay. So I'll just align that so that things are clean. Now this spinner 2, I'll change the position. Don't make the mistake of turning the whole circle like this, like turning the entire circle. What you want to do is that you want to only turn this particular small one that is inside here. You want to turn it to this side. Do the same thing for spinner 3. So how you select that particular one is that you want to click Control and then to isolate that particular one. And then you turn it to, the 3rd position. And then you do that for this last one. All right. So once you are done with that, the next thing you want to do is that you want to group them together, and then you want to create something called a component. So in Figma, a component is basically like a let's say a parent of something. Basically with components, whatever you change in one component will affect the rest of them. So you can think of them as like children of one parent element. So you go to the top right, and then you see this rhombus here. Click on it, the drop down, and you click on create component set. So you click on create component set. Once you're done with that, then you can now connect them together. So what we are doing here is that we want to do something called prototyping. So prototyping is basically the way for you to actually show how it's going to work in the app. So all these different interactions, like when you click a like button, or this example, when the spinner is spinning, or when, the text comes on the screen. So all those things that change and interact is called micro interactions. And then prototyping is the process of showing how the app is actually going to work in real life. So when you're done with that, then you want to click on the 4 circles, the 4 spinners, okay? And then you click on prototype. You see it by the top right. And then before you do that, you connect them first. So you connect this to this. Basically what you want to do is you want to say, after it has spin to this level, let it spin to this level, let it spin here, let it spin here, and then let it come back to the beginning like a spinner. So next to the next one, then the next one to the next one. Then this last one, don't leave it, or else your spinner is going to be stuck at this point. You want it to loop, right? A loop is basically going to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And so you take this back to the very beginning of the spinner, and then you have your spin cycle sorted. Then you want to select all of them, because what we want to do is that we want to connect them. And I'll show you how to make sure that they animate correctly. So you see a top right here. The first thing you see here is trigger. So the trigger basically is asking, what do we want to trigger this action? Some cases is like a tap, right? On tap is when if you click a button or you tap on something, then something happens, right? The trigger in this case is at this point where the user is waiting for an action to happen. So is they are waiting. So anything that has to do with waiting or automatic, anything automatic, you use something called after delay. Okay, so you click on after delay, and then you want to choose how many seconds it will delay for. In this case, it's 1 microsecond, meaning that like you want it to go very, very fast, right? You want to go, keep spinning and spinning very fast. Change to, so what do you want it to change? You can leave that. You've already selected what you want it to change to. And then you want to choose the kind of animation you want. Do you want it to bounce? Do you want it to just go, smoothly? Do you want it to be instant? Some of us are familiar with video editing tools like CapCut. So it's kind of like something like that kind of animation. So in this case, I want to do smart animate. We just do something simple, linear, and then we leave it as 300 milliseconds. So once you're done with that, then let's just go to the canvas. So you just pick one of the spinners, right? And you want to choose the first one, which is the parent one. Okay, so you can copy it, Control C, Control V, and then move it, and then put it in your frame. So let's resize this. It's a bit too big. Okay, let's put that in the center. And then we can just add a text here that says performing transfer. So let's just write that. So you see the text icon there. So performing transfer. And you can change the fonts here. So you have the fonts at the top, at the right side. Let's leave it as inter. Let's make this 16 pixels. So just centralize it so that everything is nice and clean. And then I'll just show you what we have so far. While we do that, does anyone have any questions? Yeah, it's still loading. Okay, let me just quickly go to the questions people left in the chat. All right, so the first question here is, as a product designer, what's your design process like as soon as you understand the problem? I think we covered this a bit in the exercise. Anu, did that answer your question? Okay, yes, great. Okay, so your process after you understand the problem. Now that understanding of the problem, you can is basically about trying to do, understand the user, really understand the user. So you want to understand, who are the users, and you want to be able to properly define the problem, right? What exactly is the problem? What exactly is the problem that you're trying? So break it down. One of the things that product design does for you is that it teaches you how to break down problems, right? It teaches you how to break things down so that you are think, even if you decide you don't want to become a product designer just helps you to become a problem solver, right? Because you're like, okay, what is the problem we are trying to solve here? How do we address it? My first question, says Ayomide, is about balancing academics and my training in UX design. While I was at home, it was very easy for me. Seun, do you want to pick up this question? It was very
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So it's very well.
It says, while I was at home, it was very easy for me to train and practice, but ever since I got to school,
Okay,
it has been a great challenge practicing.
Okay, so I think there was even one question before that, or is it the same person? Oh yeah, the same person asked two questions actually. Okay, so maybe I can answer that. Okay, balancing my academics with design while I was at home and using to train and practice. Okay, so let me put it this way. I hope Ayomide is still on the call. Ayomide, are you? You can just drop a yes or no. I don't know. I can't tell. Um, okay, but for the benefit of others. So his question is my okay, I think he just responded. Damis is on the call. Yeah, he is. Okay, beautiful. So his question is, I don't know, for the people that missed it or probably are not just joined that missed it. His question is his question is about balancing academics and UX design training. And he said he had more time. Obviously, he had more time while he was home versus now that he's in school, he's trying to balance. Okay, I'll just put it this way. I learned design myself. Actually, I taught myself design. And it was one of the most demanding things. Thank God I did it when I did, anyways. But one thing I learned was the difference between teaching yourself something and learning from someone who has done it is you save a lot of time. Right. So that's one. I'm going to answer the question about practice soon. And it took me almost a year to actually teach myself design, graphic design, actually. That was what I started with before I then evolved to the product design. Product design didn't take me that long because I already had the graphic design background and my design background in Europe too was there. But this is what I would say. I spent a lot of time I wasted a lot of time learning things in a very terrible order. Right. So I was moving from year to year to year. Now I'm saying this because the benefit of a training for you is it I don't want to use big English. But it saves you the stress of looking for the word that's coming to my head is when you synthesize something. But you bring things together and it saves you the time and the efforts that you would need to learn haphazardly. It's like when you go to school and you want to learn how to write a sentence, right? Instead of writing a full sentence, um, you they will first of all start from ABC. But what me I was doing was I was basically just learning, but at the end I got myself. So one thing I would say is if you want to really practice well, first of all, you need to understand, are you learning the right way? You might just learn, it might take a long time for you to learn. So what saves you time? And what I realized what saved me time was after a while I got mentors, which I believe Soteria is providing, who were able to then guide me along the way. But practical ways really is to set out time. And one of the ways to set out time is to have a community of people that you're actually growing with. I had that actually too. So I had a group of guys who were also learning as I was. Tomi Akiade is actually one of them. One of these days, we watch this video and be like, this guy. So I Tomi Akiade, Damlara, Joseph, people who have grown with over time. And so we challenge each other. So you can find your own community. Okay, yeah. So I remember when you saying there's a community. So if you already have a community in Soteria, that's a beautiful thing. Join that community. I believe when you probably have like maybe some challenges here and there for the bootcamp session, and you can use that to drive yourself to learn. What I've noticed is once you've been able to overcome that inertia of just getting things moving, then subsequently you'll be able to get the hang of it. Oyin, should I answer the next question or you just pick it up as well?
Great, thank you. Yes, you can answer the. I think the other one was secondly, I saw an article that spoke about how the product design job market comprises 70% novice who just focus on aesthetics and not design thinking, and 30% experts who create actual solutions to user needs. I'm still at the infancy of learning the skill. I want to know how to avoid these common pitfalls many people make during the process. Thank you very much for your time. Okay, it's a good question.
Okay, I'll try and be very brief with this one. So the only way to avoid common pitfall is to follow people who know road. That's the truth, right? Just follow who know road. Like I said earlier, I was teaching myself, and I had lots of pitfalls, which helped me sort of. But if you don't need to do that, right? So just take a training, practice, have mentors, and then just follow that process. So you said something 70% novice, focus on aesthetics and all this. Yeah, you're right, actually. Yeah, you're right. I mean, this is actually very true. I mean, I don't know about the data, but I know about the issue. And it's a normal thing. As a novice, you are very pumped about designing a good UI, but when you realize, is when you get the job, you realize that it's not just about a good UI, it's about understanding user problem. And you might get easily frustrated if you are just a UI guy who just wants to just get the UI done. Oh, beautifully in Nigeria. Let me use the word beautifully in Nigeria, or in a country where you sort of need to have a very good balance of both skills, UX and UI, to become a really good product designer, right? In some rare cases, we've had some companies who hire just UI designers and some companies who hire just UX designers. But you find a lot of that mostly outside of the country, right? So, but summarizing that, take a training, take a tech training. That really saves you time, and then ensure that you have mentors, which I believe Sotera is providing, and then have a community. You do fine. Those three things you do really fine. I hope that helps, Ayomide. Then you back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sean. Yes, that's yeah. So just follow no road, like he has said. And I think I'll just add to that to say that the like having that, executing the design, I think is a lot of what you need to do when you are starting out. Like when you are starting out, you don't immediately start doing the big strategy thinking when you are starting out. When you are starting out, you're just thinking about like, the how, as opposed to the why that Sean talked about earlier, as opposed to the why and the, some of it you learn the what, but like you are basically looking at how to actually, design screens, how to create, user flows, understanding the problems, things like that. But the big picture thinking about like the business, of course, at the early stage, you need to start thinking like that because that's what is going to distinguish you from every other entry level designer. Uh, YouTube ads interrupting my video, hence, yes. So some of these problems you people left in the chat are really interesting problems. So you can also drop in the community group, like come up with a solution. You can even decide, use a sketch, honestly. You don't have to use Figma. You can just draw pen and paper. For those that don't know how to use Figma yet, pen and paper, all right, draw it and then put, okay, this is what I think is going, this is where the box will go, this is where the text will go. I would actually be interested to see if somebody does something like that. That would be so cool. All right. I don't think there are any more questions, but as you can see, our spinner is already working. Nancy left a chat, something in the chat. I don't know what she meant by that. But yeah, so basically this is it. So I'll just do a quick run through again. Create the circles, put them in, spin them, turn them. There's going to be recording so you can go back to it and then connect them together and then create this loop. Of course, there's an extra step there to put this one here, but we don't have any more time again. So this is what we have time for. Thank you all so much for joining. Again, remember,
Sorry,
please go back. Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Like I was another design experience. I was literally finding ways to raise up my hand, but I can't. I'm so
Yeah,
used to.
Zoom is not
We use
very
Teams at
good experience.
right. So we use Teams at work, right? So I was like, there should be a hand raising some way now. I can't. So sorry to interrupt. So I promised someone I was going to answer that question about YouTube ads interrupting, and it's frustrating. So I was just going to say that it's actually an intentional design. So there are some things that are called frictions in design, and that friction is there so that they can actually make you pay. Like the designer knows that he's paying you. He wants you to pay you very well so that he can pay.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I mean, you have to pay. So sometimes you design for such purposes in business. So you see why you have to also consider the business side. Because I mean, if you are just enjoying the music like that, okay, you pay now. So YouTube has to make money too. Right. So I just said I should chip that in because I promised I was going to answer that question. Sorry, Damala, you can go ahead.
Thank you so much. That was actually really helpful because it's good for everyone to start seeing that connection, right? That connection. That's why I said product design is a collaborative process. It's not something you just sit down in your room and then you just come up with one design. You're like, oh, the button will dance, it will shake. And then developer is looking at you one eye, like, who has time to be making button shake? So you want to make sure, like he said, also consider the business, right? Consider the perspective of the product manager, consider the perspective of the developer, the perspective of the product owner, the CEO, of the data person. Like it's a full team. And one of the visions for Soteria Digital, if you join, is that because it's a full service tech program, we are going to be having hackathons where you're going to be collaborating with other people in different tech streams. So you're going to be collaborating with developers as well and other, other people in the team. So please, if you want to learn how to really think like a product designer, what are the real life situations, not just designing things that you think will work, but what are the real life implications? People like Seun will be around to share perspectives on all those different sides of things. So please sign up and join the community. We are going to be sharing some discounts and all of that in our community group. So keep an eye out for that if you're really interested. If not, please make sure that you are also, doing all these exercises and responding to people, giving them feedback, and learning from other people. Feel free to send us messages if you're there, and we'll be happy to answer answer your questions. Again, please sign up. We have a limited window before, so that we know exactly how many people are signing up for the class. So we have till the end of January for everybody to pay and get signed up, so that we know exactly who is going to be joining, and we can give you all the access links to the course. All right, so go to bootcamp.soteriadigital.co, or send us a WhatsApp message. Thank you, everyone. And we hope that you've learned something today that you can take along. You still have the design file. So in your time, you can go back to the design. You can add colors. Again, I said it's black and white for a reason, so that you can play around with it, change it, choose your own colors, choose your own fonts, do whatever you want to do, come up with your own solutions. Yeah, thank you all so much. And we will see you. So I've been thinking of various ways. Okay, Seun was already responding to that. Yes, you'll be taught how to integrate AI into your workflow. All right, thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of your weekend. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you so much. Thank you.